All right, hi, welcome back to another Walking with Charlie. It's been a couple weeks. I've been a little behind on my videos. Not really my fault. It's been kind of lousy weather, but I did get a haircut. You'll notice that. I ordered one of those little things off Amazon and did my own hair. Only took 3 times. I've disabled the comments because I don't want to hear about it. But Charlie is still waiting for his people to come back to work, which we hope is in the next week or two, because Charlie's looking a little mangy, aren't you, Charlie? Yeah, you should use a cut. Oh, you're so embarrassed. You like to let my people see me like this. Yeah, so, but he's a big celebrity, so we'll get him all trimmed up looking pretty, hopefully, as I say, in the next week or two, as all the dog groomers coming back, because he will not let me groom him, because I literally don't, as you can tell, I don't know what I'm doing. So other updates. So yeah, the weather today's pretty good. But you know, I mentioned a couple weeks ago when we were starting to get into this whole pandemic thing that I thought that movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray was an instructional video. I've come to have another view on that, because between this virus that's trying to kill us, it was snowing in May in Toronto last week, and now we got murder hornets. This is the Hunger Games. It's the Hunger Games. It's just nuts. Well, listen, I mentioned in the last video that we shot on our last walk that I was going to give you some better questions that I think we as advisors could be asking you as clients. And it was about maybe not asking about goals, but asking about destinations, waypoints, and milestones. So I think have a better conversation. And I promised that I'd start maybe sharing with you some of the kind of crummy questions or not great questions that we get, and how maybe getting you some better questions that you can ask your advisor or any professional that you deal with, really, to get a more insight, I think, into how they can actually help you and look after you. So I'm going to give you a series of these. I think today I'll just focus on one, which is a really common question we get. It's absolutely fair, which is, what do you charge? Like, what are your fees? Now, that's a really good question. The problem is it's not a great question, because even if we give you a number, you don't really do much with it. So I was thinking about how to answer that, or maybe have a better way to think about that question. And I wanted to take you to an experience that we had when we renovated our house several years ago. And we had 2 key people we dealt with. One was Dan, who was the general contractor, and the other was Gabrielle, who was our designer. They both did great work, really happy with both of them in terms of how things turned out, but very different experiences in how they billed us for what they did. So when I talked to Dan, we shared with him what we wanted to do. We talked about it quite a bit. He really understood what we wanted. We already knew the guy. We'd already seen his work, so we knew that would work out pretty good. But I said to him, look, how are you going to charge me for all this stuff? So he says, I'm going to give you one number, and that's for everything. That's for every screw, every nail, every cabinet, everything. All the guys, all the trades, everything. It's one number. You only deal with me. I'm going to handle everything. I said, fantastic. I said, I'm going to pay your price. We talked about that. But I said, I'm going to pay your price, and here's the deal. Here's what I want out of you. 3 key things. Number 1, do a great job. I don't want to be on Homes in a few years, so I don't want anything to squeak, I don't want anything broken. I want this done properly. I said, fine. Second thing is, I said, if we call you, you come running. If we have any issues, you come and deal with it. I want this to be as low stress as it can possibly be, because we've had many clients go through renovations and we know how hard it is. And so that was the second thing. And the third thing was, I said, if anything breaks in the next few years, I want you to come fix it. Like, I want to have a relationship with you. I don't want this to be a one and done. I want you to actually look after this thing. And he did. And he's been back several times over the years to fix the odd thing that kind of didn't work or kind of broke or whatever. And we fixed them all. So that's been terrific. Gabrielle, our designer, great job. She helped us pick everything, because I'm useless at this stuff. But here was the problem with Gabrielle. She billed us by the hour. And so that seems like a good idea. The problem is I never knew when we were done. I never knew how long things actually took. And it was interesting, because that was making me crazy. You know, we would get these bills for 2 hours for looking at pillows. Really? Or drapes or fabrics, or I'm like, why does it take that long? Does it really take that long? I don't know. And I had a conversation with my brother-in-law when he was looking at the house, and he said, well, what did they charge you for your cabinets? What did they charge you for your plumbing? Or how much was this? And I said, I don't know. Dan just did it for one price. And he was a little annoyed with me. He said, shouldn't you know all that stuff? I'm like, maybe, but I feel really comfortable that I had one number. I knew what it was. I knew what it covered, and I knew what I was getting. Gabrielle told me the price of everything, but it's hard to understand what her value was, because I never really knew when we were done. I never knew how long stuff really took. And finally, we just said to Gabrielle, look, you got to just stop, because I don't know when, this is so open-ended, I don't know when it's finished. So it was a very interesting experience for me as the customer to go through 2 very different ways that people billed us. And I had 2 very different feelings about it. So what am I going to share with you on that? So I guess the first thing would be, it's not just enough to say, what do you charge? I think a question is, how do you charge it, and why do you do it that way? I think that's important. I think another question is, well, what do I get for what I'm paying? What am I actually going to get? What are my expectations? What are you going to bring to me? One of the key things with Dan was we knew the trades he was going to bring were all going to be top notch and he was going to stand behind them. So your advisor, whether it's your accountant, your financial advisor, whomever, who are they going to bring to help them help you? That's very important. So you need to ask questions about that. And I'm going to give you a bit of a workflow here on, I think, a really good set of questions to ask. Not specifically, you can figure out your own style for these questions, but I think they fall into three broad categories. I think the first questions, or series of questions, should be around not just what do you charge, but how are you going to help me have clarity on what my situation is? How are you going to understand or help me understand, or how are you going to go through the process of understanding me and the things that I'm dealing with? Like, how do you do that? How do you collect information? What are the quality of questions you're going to ask me and my family so you can really get to know us? And how are we going to, through that process, get to know ourselves a bit better? I think that's really the first set of questions to ask, not just what do you charge or how do you charge, but how are you going to go through the process of getting to know us and we know you and us know ourselves? The next set of questions I think would be around what insight will you bring? What experience do you have? What professional education, training, background for you and your people that you're going to be able to bring to me and my family so we can get the benefit of your insight? Because that's really what we're paying for, right? Is how are you going to be able to make our lives better with what you've done? And I'm going to tell you something right now. People that are great at that pay more. You know, there's a reason why Mike Holmes and Steve Ballmer have TV shows, right? And if you notice, I'll just focus on those shows for a minute. If you watch any of Mike Holmes' shows where he goes in and he talks to homeowners about what went wrong, there's one commonality I've noticed in every show, which is all these homeowners, they picked the cheapest guy in the first place, and he did a terrible job. They went with the low-cost bidder, and of course they were disappointed. The guy was crap, and that's every show is like that. Why'd you pick that renovator? Why'd you pick that plumber? Why'd you pick that drywaller? Well, because he was cheap. Wow, okay. And then Steve Ballmer, he went a step further, and his first series of shows were all about going and helping people that were doing it themselves. You know, somebody thought, hey, I can change a light bulb. I can go to Home Depot. I can buy all this stuff. I'm going to rewire my kitchen. No, he would go in and he'd show them all, this is so much more complicated than you ever began to think it was. So I think the lesson from those guys is, if you want to spend a lot of money, hire an amateur, including yourself. So I think the insight part's really important, is to inquire and ask questions around what is that person going to bring to you based on their knowledge, education, experience, and other people that they've worked with. What do they learn? Because there's a learning curve to everything. Get someone who's already gone up it a lot. And I think the final part of this is not just what do you charge, but what relationship are we going to have? Are we going to work in partnership together? How does that work? Is this more transactional, like you're going to pick some pillows and go away? Or are you going to look after me and my family through the long term? And are you going to help me with things that I don't even know that I need yet? You know, one of the things that I'm quite happy to report is that through this whole pandemic experience, we've been able to help clients with things that they aren't really about investing. It's about that circle of care around family, or figuring out vacation issues that have come up, or how do we get people home? There's been so many things. And a big part of what we get to do is, and I told this to a client, I said, I'm the guy who helps you know a guy. Like, you become the guy who knows a guy, if that makes sense. So partnership is really, really important. And on that front, I really have to thank the whole team, Nick, Pedro, Andrew, Vicky, Neil, for doing so much work and reaching out to our clients and looking after everybody. There's only so many hours in the day, and there's just so much to do. And I wish I could be on the phone calling everybody. It's just, there's too much to do. I've got to read and talk and listen to people. And on that front, I've been very busy this week. One of the questions or comments we had from some people was, can you do a little more around interviewing? You've done some interviews with accountants and other people on your little home office edition of Coleman Wealth. Can you also interview some money managers and people to give us some wisdom on markets and things? And I've done that. So this week we did 3 with big name people that you're going to see. I'll roll those out pretty shortly. There's one special one for you Air Canada frequent flyers who are missing your airline experience. So we've got a fun one for that. I've also got another idea, which came from talking to a few clients that said, look, I think I should know more than I actually know, because I'm watching Bloomberg, BNN stuff. I know you told me not to unless you're on it. But there's a bunch of fundamental stuff I think I'd like to know more about, not just the basics of like what is a bond or what's a dividend, but could you share with me how you perceive it, Darren? Could you take me through what your spin on that is? Because I think that's a really good idea. And all the kids are getting schooled at home right now, or at least they're supposed to be. And so I thought, why don't we run our own little home ec class, right? So I'm going to start shooting some videos to give you some of the kind of the really core building blocks of good investing, but then put my own little spin on it. So we don't just give you the info, we give you stuff to make it even better. So that's about it. I'm going to leave it there. Charlie and I are going to keep our walk going. It's supposed to rain, obviously. Maybe it'll snow. As long as it kills the murder hornets. That's about it. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much. Charlie, you look cute. Don't worry about it. You look fantastic. We'll get the haircut. Don't worry.